I'm going through a period that's very hard to describe. And I don't know how transitional it is or how fundamental it is, but it's really characterized by, I would call it a sense of free fall, with absolutely nothing to hold on to. It's not exactly comfortable, and it's characterized by a real loss of identity. And I'm talking about it because, in a sense, I have nothing else to talk about. Literally, nothing to talk about today. And I can either not talk, which might be the wiser move, or I can just document this because I think it's a meaningful passage. It's something that occurs in the washing away of ego mind or identified self. There really is a process of stuff falling away that you are more than happy to let go of. And it really is liberating to let go of it. And then, at least in my experience, there's a kind of clutching onto the few things that still matter. And this whole idea of cohesion that people look for in life, to be cohesive, to hold together, is a kind of temporary thing anyway, because every one of us is spinning apart ultimately. In the end, we are completely dismantled. So to have that dismantling occur while you're still in body, if you will, and conscious, is an especially strange experience. I really did think the original flash of awakening that took place a year and some months ago was somehow absolute and complete and final. And it turned out to be not that at all. It turned out to be the announcing of a very big transformational process. Or, as some of us who talk about this have said, it's the beginning, really, of your spiritual life. And so what's occurring as I speak to you right now is all of the things that glue us together are starting to come undone. You look to yourself and you wake up in the morning and there's a normal thought process, and suddenly that thought process isn't there. There are certain things you've always wanted out of life that no longer seem to be particularly present. The things I've been clutching after, I'll tell you, the thing I've clutched after more than anything else is my granddaughter. My granddaughter is consciousness incarnate, bliss incarnate, awareness, presence. She sort of is everything I aspire to become. The tragedy is she's going to lose every bit of that exactly the same way we all did. But while I stare it in the face, while I look at it, while I touch it, while I embrace it, I cannot describe the amount of love and connectivity I experience. The sense of being in the presence of the truth, absolute truth. And her truth is aware and conscious and in the moment in a way that very few people are. And in order to pursue the other part of my life, which is, as you know, this Broadway play, which is a completely strange and bizarre thing to be occurring in my life. Nothing in my life anticipated that I would be doing a play on Broadway, a musical no less. If I could have wished for that, I probably would have, but it was so far removed from any possibility that it never even arose as a dream. And now it's there, and it's, rather than bringing me all of this joy, it's bringing me a kind of real sense of dislocation. What am I doing on Broadway, walking through Times Square, being with all these dancers and singers? It's not my world. It's a world. I did it in London. In London, somehow it was more familiar to me than it is here in New York City. I don't know why. It's like because everything is fragmenting and moving away. And coming here, I had to leave my granddaughter in California. And there was a possibility that came up recently that she may even be moving away from California, which is the one thing that holds me to California. And I'm watching all of these things that are who I think I am, changing on scales and levels that I've never known before. Another thing that appears to be changing and going is memory. Memory is absolutely, it's not completely out the window because it will come back if it's needed. But the mind does not go back into memory. It's not interested in memory. It's not interested in the past at all, to be honest. It's also completely disinterested in future. Future causes it confusion. The idea of planning for future doesn't make sense. And so there's a kind of conflict, which is maybe why the musical is creating such a discomfort, because it's future. It's coming at me and demanding a lot of my time. It's demanding schedules. I get emails all day long. Put this on your schedule. Put that on your schedule. We're going to be doing this here and doing that there. And it's like anything that removes me from the present feels disorienting. And so, being in this class, being in this room, being with everybody here, being with a group of people who reflect back to you this idea of presence, this idea of stillness, this idea of oneness, this place where I can actually speak a kind of truth that I cannot share outside of this room except with other students and a few people, is an extraordinary gift, because here being alone can take place, being without any pull or tug in any other direction. I think what happens in most people who go through anything like this is there's a pull back to some kind of reconfiguring of self. And what I'm sensing right now is that that's not going to happen, that the Big Bang is too big, that the floating away of the parts is too big, that it doesn't come back. And I don't know where it goes, but it just keeps going. And the person who's sitting here will, I suspect, continue to sit here and continue to express something about what is happening to the extent that it has any value to anybody at all. For me, the value of expressing it is that it creates a little bit of a roadmap for people down the road who are experiencing any of this thing. For people who start to experience the letting go of identity and self, who are starting to experience the vastness of being, we don't have a lot of people documenting the day-to-day of it. And I think there must be some value to that. I think it would have been helpful to me to talk to people going through similar experiences who would describe these kinds of events. I met when I was in California with a woman who I love a lot named Margot, who had an awakening some years ago and continues this unfolding, if you will, and she really does talk about it, but she doesn't have much of an audience. But sitting with her is so extraordinary because she does acknowledge so much of what it is I find is going on, and she's one of these people who really wants to demystify the awakening experience and to get away from this idea that it's just all this sudden blissful consciousness. Because, as I've tried to describe in these talks for the last period of time, you awaken into totality, and totality has bliss and non-bliss. It's full of materialization and the immaterial. It is something that is, in a way, indescribable. But to think of it as somehow freeing you from being is a mistake. It frees you from your particular lens through which you view being and allows you to begin to become one with being itself. Much of it is in a state of amazement, and much of it occurs during a condition I call gratitude. Some of it doesn't feel that good. Some of it is wildly disorienting. And all you can do during the disorientation is be with it and observe it. Be one with what is. That for me has become the absolute teaching. Be one with what is. You can try to change it if you want, but to what effect? All change would do would be to try to bring it back into a controlled environment. I'm no longer in a controlled environment. There's no control at all. There's only what is. It's kind of like the wind passing through the air. Stuff happens. You can go back and try to control the wind. You can try to barricade yourself against it, or you can just become one with the wind, which you are anyway. At some moments it's windy, some moments it's snowy. Today is freezing, tomorrow is going to be warm. California was 80 degrees. I got on what they call an airplane. Now I'm in freezing cold weather. You know, it changes, but that's all it is. Change is everything. Change is the endless truth. Change, change, change. Hold on to nothing. You can't hold on to anything. And when you are really in the presence of dismantlement, of coming apart, the best thing you can do, and this is something Rudy taught, and I thought it was a great teaching, was be graceful and be gracious. Much of it is uncomfortable, and you're going to want to lash out. It's a really interesting thing that happens, because the last fragments of ego are there, and they're no longer personal ego. They're just ego. A friend of mine wrote me the other day a beautiful note. He was doing mindfulness meditation, and he saw his ego screaming. Just screaming and screaming and screaming. And it frightened him to realize how loud it was screaming. And what he did in the process of watching it was see it. And that's what needs to happen, to see your ego. And the experience that seems to be occurring here is that it's not Bruce's ego, it's just the ego, the force of particularization. I call it the particle as opposed to the wave that we talk about in light. The particularization of a being that starts to get a name and a personality and a history and all of that stuff all breaks up and goes away, and what's left is just the elemental parts of that. And the elemental parts of that are these striving, reaching, crying, nervous, wondering, happening things that just keep going on. And you can't really escape it. It's absolutely part of the biology of oneself. this stuff is just going on. And so you let it, you let it, you cannot do anything but let it express itself, and try as deeply as you can to be still in the midst of it. And what you find is something that has no name and feels like nothing, like absolute nothing. But you can't deny its presence. And the more you sit in it, it radiates. It radiates inward and it radiates outward. It fills time and space. And it is your true nature. It's who we are. The search for that requires a process of ripping away, dismantling, unfolding, letting go of the stuff that makes you think you're separate from all of this. And that is what we call our ego self. And it's a lifelong process. I have been working for the course of my life in letting go of things. And then one day, all of the Bruce part fell away. But the elemental ego hasn't gone anywhere. It's still part of the whole. And that part of the whole is going to be there as long as there is a body. And as long as that happens, you simply find the core place of you and reside there. When the wind comes by, when the darkness comes, when the cold comes, when the heat comes, there it is. The elementals will react to all that. The elementals do not like cold. They do not like fire. They do not like the things of what we call disturbance and destruction. They don't like uncertainty. They don't like the unknown. And they are within us weaving the moment to moment of our life. And so, in a sense, the journey is between having those forces at work and finding the vast space in which they operate. The gift of a meditative life, the gift of a spiritual life, is that you begin to release yourself from elemental forces and live in a world of no thing. If and when the elemental forces in me stop operating, I'll let you know. It would be desirable, honestly, to live without having them be so active. This may occur, I think it does occur. But there is a stage, and I'm in it, where it's happening in a very real and dramatic way. And I want to report that, to acknowledge it, for anybody 2 years from now, 10 years from now, if these videos exist at any other point, who watches it, to go, oh, I get it. what we're doing sitting here is a very advanced work for human beings. It is amazing to me how much one has to go through to arrive at what we're doing here. How many billions of people on this planet do not have a clue that this is a process? How many billions of people move through life and do nothing but live in their delusion, their illusion, their fear, their frustration, their resistance, their anger, for their entire life, their whole life. They make, many people, no progress along the path, or the pathless path, to this. It takes a certain amount of something, conscious suffering, some awakening internally that tells you whatever it is that life appears to give you is totally impermanent and will not make you happy. The idea of searching for wealth and power and prestige and all of those things as though they're really meaningful has to hit you somewhere that it's not going to do it. Or that a partner or good sex or a child or lots of children or grandchildren or whatever is going to do it. You really have to come to understand nothing does it, because it doesn't last. It's all taken away. And so many people reach the last moment of their life. They're lying on their deathbed going, what? The gift of sitting still now, the gift of gathering in a room, the gift of coming together and feeling this collective knowing, of finding this stillness, of asking for help to surrender, asking for this to unfold, is such a meaningful achievement. It's so rare. It's so rare. You are in a rare position. Completing this journey is even rarer, because it doesn't exactly get easier. It's not, as they say, for the faint of heart. You need a really strong heart to do this. You need a strong gut. You need a strong will to keep moving through this. The total release from this journey is a promise that awaits everyone. There are people out there who speak from that place of total, absolute release. At such a time as that is my experience and it feels appropriate, I will speak from that place. But I will tell you, every step along the way has reality in it. And the not being there is as real and valuable and essential as being there. Not being awake and realizing it is as massive an experience as being awake. Being present in your current condition, whatever that condition is, allowing it to be, is an enormous achievement. Just being willing to be this in its total expression. It's also the doorway to truth. It's the doorway to everything you're seeking. You cannot arrive at truth by walking away from yourself, by trying to become other than yourself. You can only arrive at truth by being and accepting and allowing and forgiving and embracing yourself. It's the only path. And it's a path all of you can achieve now. Don't have to go anywhere to get there. You don't have to travel around the world. The path to you is that long. The path to this moment is right here. There's nowhere to get to. There's nowhere to go. You're there. This is it. Realize that. And of course, the great saints have been telling us that forever. Realize it. It's all there is. That's all you have to do. Realize it. Oh. And many of us do for about that long, or even a little bit longer, or a little bit longer, or for a week or a month or longer. And it seems that the dance between realizing it and forgetting it is absolutely crucial to this process. So if you're in forgetful mode, don't beat yourself up, just go, oh, forgetful mode. The idea that you punish yourself for forgetting is ridiculous. Forgetting is part of what it is. The Gopis in India, Krishna hides from them, and he does a dance, and they are constantly looking. And every time they find Krishna, they're in heaven. And then he does a dance again and disappears, and they find him again. And every time they find him, they're in heaven. Peekaboo, I see you. When I do that with my granddaughter, she loves it. You're gone, you're there. You're gone, you're there. That's part of what this is. So we're all doing this extraordinary dance, and the dance becomes more and more like a child playing with an adult. Christ said, you must become like a child again. Trust me, that's so true. All of you falls back into this absolute innocence, this absolute simplicity, this sense of wonder, this sense of not knowing. But if you think a child is in a state of absolute purity, they are, but they're not absent ego. Watch them cry, watch them scream, watch them fight for what they want, watch them, when they're cold, watch them when they're unhappy. That's the elemental. That's us as well. We are the totality. We are the totality. And it's an amazing totality. So, that's the report from the front lines of today. It will be a different report tomorrow, probably in 5 minutes. But all we can do is live and talk from where we are, and if you do that, the truth will be there, you will be in truth, you will live a life of truth, and you will grow in truth, and truth will set you free. Any questions?
Yes. I don't know if this exactly fits into what you were talking about, but a thought occurred to me. It's a question. Is death an illusion?
You'll find out.
Okay.
There's such an abstraction, and it's such a future-based question. And so many people live in relationship to a future-based question like that you're not living in the present.
Yeah.
Fear of death, that really is part of the elemental, but it's not exactly. Because you're not fearing an abstraction. If you have this fear thing, it's because you've had a little bit of experience. I watched Talia the other day. I put her hand under hot water to wash some stuff off. And it wasn't very hot, but she's had an experience where hot water burned her.
Yeah.
So before I put her hand under the water, she recoiled. And I saw, she's already built that in. Yeah. This is already starting.
It's in the memory banks.
Memory stuff. Yeah. And so she didn't, the first time the hand went under hot water, just pure lesson. The second time, it's not a lesson anymore. You're already starting to have fear-based stuff. But that's part of the elemental package. The elemental package starts to build up fear, and then it starts to radiate out, and you'll start to think, well, if I can be afraid of this and that and this and that, and then you start to reject the world. You start to say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I won't do this, I won't do that. And you become very narrow in your choices. Some people more than others. Some people, fascinating groups of people, my son Ari being one of them, challenged that package. They challenged the envelope all the time. If it's fearful, he goes toward it. It's something that Rudy, in a way, taught me. If it's fearful, if you're afraid of it, it holds something worthwhile. Go toward it. If you're afraid of death, sit around it. Watch people go through it. You know, the most amazing thing is to watch people die. I mean, I don't know how often you've done that, but being at the deathbed of people is extraordinary. Some of the deaths are screaming and yelling. Some of them are as beautiful an experience as is imaginable. It's quite variable, but it starts to diminish your fear of it. And it happens all the time. You know, death is not something that, you know, happens once in a universal setting. People are dying continually and being born continually, and you're going to be one of those statistics one day, and it's going to be like that. Of course, for you it would be catastrophic, because for every one of us it's catastrophic, you know. But for the world, it's like just going on. It's just happening. Learn to be universal and see your own death as just whatever it is. Whatever it is, another statistic. You know, it's all depending on how much you're caught in being Richard, and how much you're elemental, and how much you're the vastness of being in which this occurs all the time. I mean, in some way, death and birth are an ongoing part of this extraordinary thing that we're all in. But, you know, those kinds of questions are part of the human experience, part of human drama. What starts to happen, for me at this point, is it's not about some far down the road, it's about the next second. Or the one that you're in, you know. You get outside, oh my God, it's freezing, you know. Or do I need to take a coat, do I not need to take a coat? You're not thinking 40 steps ahead.
Right.
You're just thinking now.
You know, it's interesting that our friend brought that up, because I was walking down the street maybe a month or so ago, and I was feeling like, I was feeling kind of mixed. And I looked up at the trees, and everything was, the leaves were in the breeze, and I just thought, well, if I were to die right this moment, I could just drop my body like a snakeskin and just keep on walking. It felt like it wouldn't be anything. Now, you think I was kidding myself about that? I was saying, no, wait a minute. Maybe I'm just,
I think you have a willingness to do that. I mean, look, what I always tell people, and I know this is a weird thing, hold your breath. Somewhere around the 2.5 minute mark, or some people sooner than that, your reaction to dying will show itself. Very vividly. That's the dark force, really. And I don't think it's easy to get through that. That's the biological force. The body doesn't want to die, and you're going to have to go through it, and you're not going to like it, probably. Unless you're unconscious, or whatever it is, morphined out of awareness. You're not going to like it. But there it is. There it is. I mean, I had put my dog Napa down a few weeks ago, and it was really sad and really difficult. But the extraordinary thing was how fast it was. They went in and they just gave her this little shot, and she went and she looked like that. That was over. It was just over. That's kind of the blessing, it's over. And if there was a panic inside, God knows it wasn't long. It just ended. And, some people go that way, some people don't. Christ on the cross was in massive agony and not happy. Not happy. And he was a realized being as big as they come. So forgive yourself if you don't fall off the vine easily, if it has to be ripped off the tree. But, we each get whatever it is we need, and each of us hopefully will be in some way prepared for that moment. You don't want to do it unconsciously. I mean, I've been there. Long story, but I know what that's like, to leave this world attached to the world. It's Hieronymus Bosch. It's the Garden of Earthly Delights. It's being ripped apart from a million different directions. That's how most people leave the world, because they're not letting it go. And why aren't they letting go? Because they've never learned how. Nobody ever taught them. Nobody ever said it was worth doing. But to do this just to avoid that, that's its own difficulty. The process is let go, let go, let go, let go, and then you will come to the stuff that won't let go. And that's when the work starts.
To share your opinion about pleasure to play with grandchild. What you tell about we go, we never stay. You see, when I play with my grandchild, I feel that this is a major result of my life, and major pleasure, and major my achievement. And it's so touching.
It's really
much more important than all the things.
I know that feeling. You know, we share that. We've had grandchildren almost at the same time. You have to let go of her at some point. You know, you let go of the grandchild. Is it granddaughter? Yeah. You know, you let go. You're going to have. Everyone has to let go. If you want to know new attachment, at our age, grandchildren are the new attachment. You know, they're the biggest attachment perhaps ever in our life. And yet, at some point, we have to free ourselves even of that. And I'm finding, you know, like I said on the talk, that's painful. You know, the fact that I even had to come here from California, where I saw her every week. You know, now it'll be, I won't see her for months. That's very hard. There's suffering that comes along with that. So the new pleasure, the new joy, brings suffering of a whole new dimension along with it, and that's hard. You know, imagine in the old country, you know, when people left home with their children, if your grandchild went across the ocean and you may never see them again, imagine the cause of suffering that would bring about, the sadness. So as much as the joy is there for you right now, and it's completing and it's absolutely wonderful, it has an actual reaction of losing that's as big as the joy has of having. So life is, that's what life is, and we as individuals are caught up in this vice of enormous desire and suffering, back and forth, and it's human experience. And you know, you find your way through much of it, you know, and then you get to a point of, and it forces you, if you're willing to learn to let go of it all. So that when she's around and she's in your arms, you're in a state of total joy. And when she's not around and you're not there, you're in a state of complete satisfaction. That's a thing to arrive at. So you don't have to have, you cannot be there every minute. You can't. I would like to. I would tell my kids, goodbye, I just want you, give me the granddaughter.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I don't need you anymore, I've got what I want.
This is your dividend.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
But then the granddaughter grows up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Then, you know, then she's 12 years old and she's dressing with mini skirts, and you know, and we all know the ride. Anybody else?
I think it will start earlier than this, but when she starts talking back to you.
Yeah, all of that. No, of course. No, it starts with no. It's for every human being. You know, somewhere around the age of 2, they go no. And that's like, what? And that's what we all learn from that. So, I have no idea how this next 4 months is going to play out. The apartment I have in New York is relatively small, beautiful views, but relatively small. I may try to teach class in the city on occasion, but I will need to know if there's anybody who's actually going to come. You know, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. But that's one option, and I may try to get up here once a month if I can do that, and maybe fly to LA once a month. But I'm not trying to be able to do any of that, so I'll let you know as I start to feel it out, watching how the demands of the show. But thank you for coming today. It's great to see you all, and I really appreciate it, and we'll see each other sometime soon.